Welcome back. This is our political insider. Donald Trump is forcing the elites to show their true colors. Mitt Romney, John Kasich, Rubio, Paul Ryan, and on and on. Trump picks Indiana Governor Mike Pence. And why hasn't the Donald played Melania until now? Maury, Melania has a great story. She has a great background to her life. I didn't know anything about her until the convention, and I'm a little bit surprised that they haven't brought her out sooner, because this whole anti-immigrant, anti-female, anti-Muslim card that they're playing on Trump, he could have used this a long time ago.
No, I disagree with you. I think he did it just perfectly. He kept her in the background. I think his whole family has shown their love for him. I mean, everybody in their family just think he's the greatest. If a guy was a bad guy, there'd be something in the family that they could bring out. I think this was just a way of keeping her in the background until the right time. It was like Giuliani. Giuliani, the great guy, he was a great mayor, and he's a great investigator or whatever. And look how he came out last night, the best speech he ever made. And I think the idea was to hold her back until this incident last night, when she, when she really came through beautifully. If you'd have seen her before, it wouldn't have been such a surprise.
Really? I think he could have quelled a lot of the criticism that's been thrown at him throughout the entire primary process.
I disagree entirely. I think people are so stacked against him that hate him, and there's a lot of those.
That wouldn't
have made any difference. I think he did the right thing. Exactly. I think the way it was handled last night was perfect.
Because there's a couple of things at play here. Number one, they're going to use the female card against him. Melania may have just squashed that because of how eloquent she was. They're also going to use the anti-immigrant sentiment against him. He's not anti-immigrant. He's anti-jihadi immigrant.
Well, first of all, it's very interesting about you say the fact that he gets a very small minority of the female vote. I think that may change, because I know even some women I know that were going to automatically vote for Hillary are now having second thoughts. They're worried about their security. He's gone from let's make America great again, let's make America safe again. That's becoming more important. I think that's the leverage that he's going to use in this campaign for the rest of the next few months.
Well, that really brings home to every individual. I mean, this is the pebble in the shoe, if you will. These guys are going crazy around the world, and we can't even say who they are. I mean, that's a pretty stark contrast between what Trump wants to do and Hillary Clinton.
On our last show, we talked about taking away the guns, and I mentioned that in Germany they took everybody's guns away just in case that anybody had a thought of rising up against Hitler. I think, in a sense, the reason that they have this anti-gun attitude, it's stupid, because everybody can get a hold of a gun. There's more guns sold today than ever. The idea is the people that have those guns, and consequently, I think that's what's happened. I think the idea that was, if they could take over, I'm not saying there was going to be a takeover of the government or anything, but nobody could protect themselves, and that is influencing a lot of women who say they can't. If somebody breaks into our house and we can't defend ourselves, and if they now see that the Obama administration is doing nothing to protect them. In fact, they're trying to destroy the police force, which is the only fence of protection that they have. When you call 911, you can get some police coming over. What if you can't? Yeah. You've got nobody to protect you.
What's interesting is the Dallas police officers that were shot. They were protecting a group that was protesting them. Think about the irony there.
Yeah.
Police are protecting people that are basically trying to kill them.
And the one thing is, it just makes me sick to think about it, what's happening in Chicago. It's kind of interesting, but it's really the city where I spend most of my life. But the point is, they say pretty much they don't break into the center of the city, what they call the Magnificent Mile, the Gold Coast in Chicago.
South Side?
Yeah. They're all on the south side, and they're killing each other. Thousands of people have died in the South Side people of
Yeah.
American descent.
And if you really cared about black lives, wouldn't you be protesting Planned Parenthood? I mean, they kill millions of African American babies each and every year, and yet they're silent about it. They actually support the
Well-
politicians that support them.
It's duplicitous, of course, but it's senseless to talk about it because we know what
Yeah.
it's all about.
Okay, Mike Pence, governor of Indiana. Smart pick?
Yes, the best.
Why?
But first of all, he is recognized both by the establishment and the people that don't like the way the establishment handled things. The guy's a decent guy, he's a conservative, and he is a Christian evangelist. So he has everything going for him. Nobody has been able to come up with anything against the guy. He's not a strong man like Newt Gingrich.
Oh, he voted for the Iraq War. That's going to come back to Biden, I
man,
think. But so did Hillary.
I think it was a fantastic pick because even though he's not that well known, he is known by the people that know him and they think he's the
And
greatest.
you think that that helped solidify that Midwest
Absolutely.
vote, the Michigan,
Abs-
Pennsylvania?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it'll help in Pennsylvania. I think it'll help in Ohio. I think it'll help in Michigan. Absolutely.
And what do you make of all the sore losers that got trounced in the primary that are now
The 16?
whining and crying? The Rubios, the Kasich,
Well, but let's be fair about
Romney.
it. It's not all of the. It's certain ones. Romney's the worst. I think Rubio has been pretty decent about the whole thing. I don't think I've heard too much about him. But
he's
you're
not
right.
speaking at the convention, or he didn't speak at the
Well,
convention.
You know, he never made that much of a hit.
Have you
to begin
ever,
with.
in your lifetime, you've been following politics your whole life?
Yes.
Have you ever seen a never Eisenhower, never Clinton, never Bush, never this one, never that one, like you've seen with,
Well,
with Trump?
that's a leading question in a sense. You're talking about a different time when nobody bothered with all these meetings and all these candidate forums and so on and television.
But have you ever seen a party attack their own nominee like they're going after Trump? I mean, to me, this is despicable. And it's showing the true colors of some of these people, too, which I'm kind of glad.
Well, again, I'm not trying to be argumentative in answering this, but you know, you had it when Wendell Willkie came out, who nobody knew him, and because they didn't want to have Dewey in those days and so on. You had a lot of that, but you had it behind the scenes. You didn't have it out in the open.
Well, is that because of social media, 24-hour news cycles,
Yes.
internet,
Yes.
talk
yes,
radio?
Yes, exactly. It's much more open now. It's like having an argument that you used to be able to do behind the doors or in your own house. Now everything you say comes out open. We were talking about Roger Ailes, the godfather of Fox, now is in trouble because of his sex. Not a sex scandal, but an
Accusations.
accusation of sexual behavior.
And you know, at his age, you know, he's probably getting ready to hang it up anyway. I mean, how much longer do you want to be in the war?
Yeah, but the point is, you know, the man became a giant in the media business. He brought Fox. I mean, my God, they go back to the late '80s, early '90s.
90s.
Yeah, and suddenly they're the greatest as far as news stations are concerned. And Roger Ailes was always given total credit, as he should have been. And Rupert Murdoch had total faith in him. And now, because Gretchen Carlson...
And he had a lot to do with Nixon. He was actually hired to make Nixon more presentable on television. Because, you know, you got to admit, Nixon did come off a little gruff.
No kidding.
Yeah. But he won twice.
Well, Nixon won twice because of circumstances. I mean, listen, Nixon would not have won if he didn't have Humphrey to run against, who was a very weak candidate. If Robert Kennedy had not been assassinated, Robert Kennedy was on the way to being the nominee of the Democratic Party.
And probably would have been.
Oh, he would. Remember when Nixon wasn't even named governor of California? He said, "Now you don't have Nixon to kick around anymore."
I'm really disappointed with the Bush family. I know what to expect from them because I know that we wouldn't have had Reagan if it was up to the old man Bush. and I know we wouldn't have Obama if it wasn't for George W., but show some respect. I mean, Jeb didn't win. He spent $100 million. Get over it. Do you agree with that?
I agree with it, but I understand it. They were the dark mastermind of the Bush family is James Baker, and he was manipulating the whole deal all the way for the old man and also for George
Karl Rove
W.
has got to be looked at too. He's in that team too.
Was that?
Karl Rove has to be.
Yeah,
lumped
well,
into
Karl
that,
Rove
too.
was part of the group. No question about it.
Yeah. Do you think that Pence, with his record, he's not a great debater? Do you think that he can handle himself against what's going to be thrown at him?
I think Pence was more of unifying the Republican Party. Vice presidents, like Biden. I mean, come on, Joe Biden's a nice guy, and not
He's from Syracuse University, so don't knock him.
I'm not knocking him. He's a
just
nice
kidding.
guy. He's behaved himself. People like him. He's not a mental giant, even though he's from Syracuse University. And I think with Pence, you've got a guy who
He's got a solid record as governor.
Well, I think Pence is there to give the Republican Party the states they might not have gotten if he wasn't there. Newt Gingrich would have been a much better guy to be a co-president, but wouldn't have brought any states into the fold.
Yeah, and he brings a lot of baggage. However, he
yeah.
would be my first number on speed dial. I'd be calling him for just about anything because he's the smartest guy in the room.
I know, but the point is, I'm telling you, the whole idea was to balance off the main candidate, which was Trump.
So you bring in some gubernatorial acumen. He brings some leadership qualities, running a
He was
state.
in Congress, and he's liked. He's very much liked by the party. So those that totally dislike Trump can't dislike Pence because he doesn't have any real enemies.
Yeah. All right, we need to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. Our moment in history is straight ahead. Again, make sure you're sharing our show on all your social media platforms. It's simple, it's easy, it's free. Just go to YouTube and search Morris Beschloss. He's also on Twitter at @mbeschloss.